The Nigerian army has warned a Kaduna-based Islamic cleric Sheikh Ahmad Gumi and other opinion merchants to exercise restraint not to sully the reputation of the military by the unsavory and inciting comments. In a statement, Director, Army Public Relations, Brigadier General Muhammad Yerima dismissed Sheikh Gumi's allegation that Christian soldiers were responsible for killing bandits, saying troop deployment was not done on religious or ethnic considerations. The statement has expressed concern about the video showing Islamic scholar Sheikh Ahmad Gumi alleging that non-Muslim soldiers were responsible for the attacks against bandits. The statement added that while the Nigerian army will not want to take issues with the cleric, it however restated that as a national institution, it does not deploy troops along ethnic or religious lines. Gumi, in a viral video, was heard telling a group of bandits that they were being targeted by Christian soldiers and not Muslim troops. Sad one again.
Incredibly sad. I mean, my first exposure to this Sheikh Gumi, thankfully from a great distance, thank God for that, was to do with this particular situation, this banditry situation. Had no idea who he was before. Do you have any intel on this? Does he own Nigeria? I'm kind of baffled because if anybody else made such revolting comments, we can imagine, you know, the sky would fall. But he gets to swan around uttering utter claptrap with apparently zero consequences. It is so disgusting on different levels to incite the bandits to hate Christian soldiers. When the Nigerian army, and as you are aware, we all criticize the Nigerian army, as we should, because any individual or institution, none of us is, you know, above reproach. When we should criticize, we do. But I am profoundly grateful to the army for the sacrifices that they make. We all get to sit here and live our normal lives because they are on the front line holding evil at bay. So this is so disgusting. This is so offensive. And to further incite the bandits against Christians deepens this whole Muslim-Christian tension that these people are creating that actually does not exist, you know, in normal times in Nigeria. It's the creation of minds like this. It's completely wrong. And those people who are quite shrill in their rejection of what they have described as profiling of Fulani people, I hope will be equally strident in their rejection of this profiling of Christian soldiers. It's completely unacceptable.
Dr. Wati?
Well, I think it is sad to use the phrase you started with when you consider the pedigree of Sheikh Ahmed Gumi, or Dr. Ahmed Gumi, as he also is. He was a member of the Nigerian military in the medical corps. He's a trained medical doctor. He's an educated man, and you will expect that given his background, there will be a greater demonstration of enlightenment and maturity and restraint on his part. It is even worse that each time he went to those forests, either in Katsina State or in the border areas between Kaduna and other states in the north, he was also accompanied by equally educated people. And you begin to wonder, you know, what is the value of education or exposure, that some of the people fanning the embers of, you know, ethnic division, religious division in the country are otherwise educated people who should be providing the kind of necessary leadership that we look forward to. Second, the military, I think, is late, maybe in responding. Maybe perhaps this is so because of the fact that the military itself was in transition. Service chiefs were changed, and a new set of service chiefs took over, and the man who is now the spokesperson of the Nigerian Army, Brigadier Yerima, you know, is new on the job. So it has taken him almost about 2 weeks to respond, because Sheikh Gumi, as is popularly known, made this statement about Christian soldiers being the ones killing the bandits about the same time that he was defending the bandits and saying that they are not criminals. And so we will have expected a very prompt response from the Nigerian military, but it's better late than never. And I think that the message is in place, is in order to say that Sheikh Gumi, not just Sheikh Gumi, there are also probably others in other parts of the country who are using religion, ethnicity, to play the politics of division. And everyone just needs to be reminded of history, how in the 60s, this kind of febrile ethnic religious politics led to the Civil War. And also in other parts of the world, we have seen, in the case in former Yugoslavia, how the discrimination on religious grounds led to an implosion of a country that had been put together by Tito. I think that's his name? Yes, Tito. You know, so by Tito. So Nigeria is at a very delicate point right now. And it's not just the military that should be warning people. Also all the other, you know, stakeholder institutions and agencies should be reminding people. The likes of Gumi, they are everywhere. You have the likes of Gumi, you have his likes in the east, you have his likes in the southwest, people who have been beating the drums of division, of violence, of difference, people who are trying as much as they can to draw more attention to the centrifugal forces within the Nigerian arrangement. Everyone needs to be reminded, we reiterate, that this is the only country that we have. And we are perhaps, you know, much better off staying together than people using the factors of ethnicity and religion, you know, to divide the country. What must be noted, however, is that before now, even Northern Elders, there is a group in the North called the Northern Elders Group for Peace and Development. They condemned Sheikh Gumi's vituperative outburst, and they want him, in fact, to stop going to the bandits and find something else to occupy him. If he has no job to do, let him sit at home instead of going to the bandits, paying courtesy visits, and encouraging them, you know, to think that they are patriots rather than the criminals that they are. They also urged other northern leaders to disassociate themselves from Sheikh Gumi's statements. The Northern Elders, the Arewa Consultative Forum has also had cause to speak up. Similarly, the Christian Association of Nigeria. So whether it is, you know, Sheikh Ahmed Gumi or any other person, either in the east or the southwest, I think people who are trying to divide this country should be called to order. And the security agencies must be seen to be fair-minded and impartial in how they call such persons to order.
And for all those trying to use religion to divide the country, just remember the case of Srebrenica. Between the 11th of July, 95, to the 22nd of July, 8,000 Bosniak Muslims were slaughtered in the city of Srebrenica. So just always remember that. The gruesome effect of this religious division. Please, we don't want war, we want peace. All right, that's all on headlines. We'll take a short break now. And when we return, we'll have Rhodes Adiri, Michael Wilson, Adesu Amorwa, Aaron Akirito to give us updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19 and spread activities across the globe. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show right here on the Rising channel. We'll quickly go to Rotus. Rotus, how are you doing this morning?
Thank you, Rufai. Good morning to you. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Tundu. We're talking earnings. United Bank of Africa, UBA Tier 1 Bank, released its full year 2020 financials just last night. And again, we have to keep this within the context that this is financials for the pandemic year. But the bank did well. Its gross earnings were up 10% to 620 billion naira. Most of this was driven by their interest income. So UBA essentially was pretty much making its money from its core services. And what is the bank supposed to do? It's supposed to, earn interest by offering loans. So interest income was up about 5.6% to 427 billion naira. If you drill down a little further, their interest after you back out net interest expense, it still was up about 16.9% to 259 billion. You back out impairments, which is stuff for provisions for credit losses and stuff, it was still up about 14%. Their FX trading income, which includes, this is foreign exchange trading income, which includes re-evaluation gains. That is the amount of foreign exchange they hold. That also contributed to their earnings. That was up about 15% to 28 billion naira. The bank also, if you look at their cash assets, let's talk about their assets as well. The assets grew 36.9% to 7.6 trillion naira. I think their loans and advances to customers, that was up about 23.9% to 2.5 trillion. And their customer deposits, a lot of the big driver behind their asset growth of almost 37% for 2020 was their deposits from customers. That was up 48% to 5.6 trillion naira. So all in all, was a pretty healthy earnings from UBA. However, their dividend, the dividend that they proposed was a 35 kobo final dividend. If you add it to their 17 kobo interim dividend, total dividend for the year comes out to about 52 kobo, which is lower than the dividend they proposed in 2019. They have an earnings call with analysts where people get on the phone and ask them why their dividend is lower. It could be maybe they have an obligation coming up, or maybe they just want to be more cautious about the year, or, you know, essentially when you look at your last line item on an income statement, and I'm sorry to go through all these terms, but you essentially either pay out dividends to your investors or you keep it as retained earnings. So maybe they just want to, you know, keep a higher share of their retained earnings. Either way, when a bank has top line growth of 10% and bottom line growth, in fact, let's look at their profit before tax. Profit before tax, PBT, was up 18.5% to 131 billion naira. Their profit after tax, which is their profit for the year, up 27.7% to 113 billion naira. So when your gross earnings, your top line growth is up 10%, and your bottom line growth, your profit after tax, is up 27%. I mean, those are healthy profits. One would expect that dividend will be higher. But we'll find out on the earnings call, which I think is later today or tomorrow or this week. We'll find out from the chief financial officer. But look, considering the tough year that 2020 was, pretty decent result from UBA. I think the stock closed at 8 naira yesterday, was closed up about 0.63%. We'll have to see how investors react on the stock exchange today to the lower dividend, because if you compare it to Zenith Bank's final dividend was over 2 naira. So, you know, again, these are all banks playing in the tier 1 space, but still, all in all, good result from UBA. UK. Well, this is the UK, but still concerns international students, which concerns Nigerians. It was in This Day newspaper of record. The UK is essentially introducing a graduate route to a work permit for international students, and it kicks off, I believe, on July the 1st. What the United Kingdom is doing, they're refreshing their point-based immigration system, and what they're offering international students, if you've studied and got a bachelor's degree or higher, you have about 2 years to be able to look for a job. I mean, they've liberalized the process at the universities, because the UK is essentially seeking international talent. And I really encourage everyone to read the article in This Day, because, you know, the headline said relief as UK offers work permits to international students. And, you know, I guess when you think about the relief part of that headline, the UK is an attractive economy. If you are thinking of, you know, going to school there, you now have, I think it's 2 years for a bachelor's degree or higher. For a doctorate, it's about 3 or 4 years. It's going to liberalize the process and attract more talent into the United Kingdom, especially when you consider the number of Nigerians that are studying there. However, there's the flip side of, you know, brain drain, and the number of folks that will be, you know, scrambling to go there now. I think when this kicks off on July the 1st, although the flip side of that argument is that the more Nigerians who go to study in the UK and get a job, the more remittances hopefully come back. But then there's the amount of time it takes from going to school, getting a job, and then starting to send remittances back. But, you know, the UK system here for international students, they really are liberalizing the process, and they are out to get international talent. Michael Wilson talks about the financial hub of the United Kingdom and how attractive it is. So this is something that's really going to bring in international students, especially from here. Now, what about Nigerian universities and, you know, improving things here? That's a story for another day.
Yeah, but it's a really short.
Please go ahead.
It's a short period of, you know, that they get that short window of a few years. So I guess the idea is to get the education, get the experience, and then come home with all of that and make your impacts here. But that is a really radical policy as far as I'm concerned. I never would have thought such a thing would be possible. So that's, you know, kudos to the Home Office to develop that scheme.
Well, is it really new? I think there's been something like that in place, not just in the UK, but also in Canada. But the basic principle of it is that, look, many countries of the world would attract the best and the brightest. I think they even have a similar scheme in the United States, whereby you try to attract the best and the brightest to your environment. And you talked about brain-drain. Yes, we should be concerned because in the 19th century, at the turn of the 19th century, Ireland became a provider of skilled persons, for other parts of the world. Many of those great writers that we talk about, they were originally Irish, but they had to relocate to a better environment. So the other side of it, what is it that we're doing in Nigeria that we can make this environment attractive for our people, for our young persons? These days, in the past, many parents used to be sentimental about Nigeria. They would tell their children, oh, you can't go anywhere. But can any parent now legitimately, seriously just tell their children, don't go where you want to go and, achieve your best potentials in any part of the world? And if we see how many Nigerians have been doing well, the ones that have been appointed into the cabinet in the United States, the ones that are attorney generals in Canada, you really cannot stop anybody. So my concern really is not about the UK opening its doors, revising its immigration policies, which was one of the major issues for the present Prime Minister when he was seeking that office. It is about how do we retain the best and the brightest in Nigeria. What we seem to be retaining at home now, or that we're encouraging to retain at home now, is the Division 3 population of Nigeria. I hope we will not wake up one day and all the bright people will have relocated, including President Company. But very quickly.
So are we Division 3? Are we part of the Division 3 population?
You are Division 3.
Anyway, but it's not, it is new. What used to happen before in the UK, if you go and get an education there, you're essentially given your degree and turfed out. That's the end of your student visa. If you are lucky to get a job, if you're particularly skilled or talented, you get a job, but your employer has to show that no United Kingdom citizen, no EU citizen could have filled that particular post. And many people don't bother to do that.
A very good point, Tundo. I just want to quickly harp on that. The UK needs us now. That's why they are doing all of this. 4 or 5 years ago, they had a policy that was totally opposite of this. That once you do your degree, get out.
Yes.
So they lead us now. You can see the second wave of colonialism starting. Now they are out of Brexit. They need talent. They need skill. It's us they will fall back to. This was the same us that they pushed away 5, 6 years ago with that same policy. Now they've changed it. They need us now. Can you see who the beautiful bride is now? You see?
Anyway, I still insist that it's not entirely new. I know what you're talking about, But quickly, the Naira seems to be depreciating, both in the NAFEX window and also in the black market. And that's what we've seen in the last 2 days. Does it mean that the Naira for dollar policy is not working?
It's too early to. It was just the Naira for dollar policy was just launched yesterday, Doctor. So we have to give that at least until the May 8th when it ends. We'll have a good 60 days. We'll hopefully have data from the central bank to tell us.
We have to go to a quick break. Thank you so much for your time. We'll move on to business of the market. We'll see Jones now from London. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back to the Morning Show right here, Rise News Channel. Moving on to business update with Michael Wilson, now from London. Michael, great to have you.
No, from Doma.
Good. Doma.
From
Michael, from Doma.
Good morning, Michael Wilson.
Good morning. Yeah, the rotational trade still continued on Wall Street, actually, to some extent extending into Asia as well. What I mean by that is that stock markets with heavy 2020 winners of the pandemic actually was suffered, but the unloved stocks like banks, consumer staples, resource property companies catching more now of those global recovery wins. So that's the change there. All of this can be laid at the door of the United States, really. Firming of US yields on the back of the Biden stimulus, which is sure to go through now, process of improving data, vaccination process and the rest of it. So therefore, let's go to Asia markets first of all, and a clear split here. One, China, and then the ASEAN ones, the North-South divide, quite laid bare. Reports coming in this morning. I'm seeing a lot of things on social media saying that in the Shanghai Index 300 is seeing China's they call it national team. I think what they mean is the bank actually coming into, or at least the government coming in to buy stocks. They're using pension funds to buy up equities. It's a band-aid really, but it is indicative of China's wish. When they get worried about the stock market, they tend to get public money in to buy it. And you're actually seeing that, whereas and that's helped considerably as far as China's market is concerned. Let's go to Japan. Their recovery is slowing. They're slower than initially reported pace in October to December. Firms tightening spending, inventories down, and so on. People not shopping. Household spending hit by a bigger annual drop last month, rather in January, than in the prior month. So basically, the COVID pandemic, whatever one thinks about the progress in Japan, is keeping consumers very cautious. So as far as the United States is concerned, let's recap that. The stock markets roared yesterday, basically, as far as because the US Senate had signed off the $1.9 trillion relief package, and there's going to be more of an enormous spending program on infrastructure and so on. But most importantly, those $1,400 stimulus checks that pushed up the US 10-year yield above 1.6. It pulled back very, very slightly. Janet Yellen has said, the new US Treasury Secretary, she's not worried too much about inflation. But that rotational stock buying, which I told you about, NASDAQ actually down once Biden has signed off on the stimulus package. He will turn his attention to the $3 trillion America New Deal, or whatever they're going to call it, which is about rebuilding infrastructure and so on, which will give jobs. But also, of course, there'll be more worries about inflation. So we still have that debate to continue. I suspect that's going to go. I'll bring your attention back to the UK. And talking about inflation, the Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, says he's going to wait until 2% inflation, because that's the sort of target that they have about it. It's actually consistent, and they're working on, this is a sort of catch-all phrase, which just means that they're thinking about but not doing anything about negative interest rates. My feeling about interest rates in this country, and I think around the world, is I think central banks will be having pretty tough words with their governments, saying, you do the fiscal tightening, we will hold off on monetary tightening until we get some indication of where things are going to go. And actually, if you think about it, and I did say this to you last week, that if you look at inflation targets right now, the way that things have suddenly come up rapidly as a result of the pandemic optimism of it being over and the rest of it, compare those against next year. Yeah, sure, there's going to be a big jump when next year is compared with the bad months of the end of 2020, but it's really what happens after that. So I would say that central banks are quite right to hold their fire, quite honestly. UK is also calling for industrial strategy. I did draw your attention to the fact that the budget had actually just been a sticking plaster. Basically, there was nothing dramatic about where the UK is actually going, and we've had more calls for that. The Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, in January said he wanted to focus and direct industrial strategy. Nothing about that in the budget at all. Retail sales up yesterday 1% as well. Basically, I suspect this has got kind of chimes with a number of economies, really. Home improvements and people and the kids going back to school is actually helping a lot of people. On the commodity markets, oil consolidating its gains, no matter what we said last week about OPEC Plus. It's a feeling that the grouping will ease supply curbs, but we'll see about that. And that's pushing the oil price up very, very slightly. Gold, poor old gold, on the ropes as usual, about 168.83 now. No great recovery in sight for that. And the dollar strength is really undermining any hopes of recovery there. That's your global view. Very good morning to you.
Michael, I know you don't like to discuss politics or some other issues, but what interests me this morning is to ask you about this controversial interview by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and whether you think that this is truly, as it has been described, annus horribilis, and how all of this is playing out in the United Kingdom, since you are right there and we are here far away from you. I hope you will indulge me.
Yeah. So here's what I think about it, and I'm reflecting the comment on it. First of all, the Queen has come out of it very well indeed. She has been seen, and Meghan Markle actually said that yesterday. She said that the Queen had been very good to her. The the royals, well, it's always been a dysfunctional family. I think what's surprising about Meghan is she didn't do any research. She actually said in the interview she didn't look at what had happened in the royal family. She thought she would be protected and so on. For heaven's sake, we saw the example of Diana. She should have known she was stepping into a very, very big position indeed. I have to say, I thought Oprah Winfrey's interviewing technique was absolutely excellent. She allows people to talk, but then again, you can, if you've got control over timing, you've got control over, it's your own company. You can do what you like. She's made a lot of money out of it, and it was quite clear that the royals had made very little. I think that the Queen will be relatively magnanimous about all this. There's not a constitutional crisis. I do feel as though they've rattled the gilded cage, number one. The Americans like that a great deal. People looking at it around the world. This is playing around the world. But they've now stepped into showbiz, and they are firmly in showbiz. And if that's where they want to go, well, good luck to them. But it's nothing to do with a royal family. It's nothing to do with what we used to talk about as being responsibility. And if you look through our present Queen's life, from taking over the role when she didn't want it, when she was a young girl, coping with the post-abdication crisis in this country, Princess Margaret coping with Prince Charles, Diana, and Prince Charles marrying, for the second time, and all this kind of stuff. It is a dysfunctional family, but she has been a beacon of hope and a beacon of steadiness amongst all this. So there's not a constitutional crisis. It's unfortunate, it's sad, but that's families for you.
I completely agree. I wanted to ask about...
Go ahead.
UK's carbon emissions pledge. I don't think enough time is devoted talking about that, because it is legally binding, isn't it? Where do you think the UK is, or the UK government is, in terms of fulfilling that pledge?
Well, they are going to have to do it by the time they've said that they will. I would caution about it. Nobody has actually calculated and told us the true cost of carbon zero. I think it is very, very expensive indeed. Well, you've got to go granular. It's all right having these big targets. If you go granular about it, is everybody's boiler, everybody's heating apparatus in this country going to be suddenly converted from gas and oil to some kind of greenery? I don't think it is. Do we know what the costs will be? No. Do we know what the hidden costs will be? Do we know what we'll be doing is, yeah, we can go green, but what about China? China is actually said it's going to be using more coal, which, as I understand it, is a fossil fuel in future years. Will it undercut us in terms of manufacturing? Yes, of course it will. Will we still be importing lots of goods from them? Yes, we will. Will Europe be doing that? Yes, it will. Will the United States? Yes, it will. In other words, the true costs of all this have not been explored. And the final nail, as far as I'm concerned, in the coffin of all these aspirations is none of these politicians who are saying these things now because they sound rather good are going to be around to actually push them through over the next 20 or 30 years. That's what it's going to take. So we don't know what the cost of these things are going to be. Personally, I think they're lovely targets to have. We all feel warm and cuddly. But realistically, is it going to be expensive? Yes, it is.
Okay, Michael, real quickly, I got loads of questions, but I just have to ask one. I want to talk about inflation. I want to talk about what Andrew Bailey is doing now. You're trying to keep those interest rates, but inflation definitely will go up because that furlough scheme extends till September. You're putting a lot of money in people's hands. You want them to spend it. It will come up. How will that affect interest rates? Jimmy Dimon the other day was talking about the fact that the American 10-year bond wasn't doing good. I looked at the numbers yesterday. They were low. They were in red. The American 10-year bond were in red yesterday. So is Jamie Dimon right about that? And if I can just put this in, what would you say real quickly? A lot of tech companies are doing well post-pandemic. The COVID-19, really heralded a new wave of money for them and their businesses. But people are now investing in the S&P 500. The market again is down yesterday. What's happening?
Okay, tech, first of all, I wouldn't never underestimate it. Industry is changing. I talk about a rotational trade. Yes, we've seen all that. But remember, people within the business make money out of rotational trade. Doesn't matter which way it goes. I think tech's got a long way to go. It is obviously the future. The old-fashioned industries will have to look to their laurels about this. No, I would never, ever underestimate tech companies. They make a huge amount of money. Even if they're broken up, people actually want them. People want to go on social media. People want to go on Facebook. They want to take on Wall Street. They want to take on, the establishment through social platforms and so on. No, I would never underestimate those. As far as inflation's concerned, I did make the point like this, that, first of all, yes, the indicators this time next year will show inflation will have risen hugely because we are at the low of where the pandemic's left us, or at least last month we were, right? So next year, of course, the year-on-year figures will show a massive increase. But what Andrew Bailey is saying, I think quite sensibly for once, is saying, do you know what? We're going to look through that and we'll see how it develops over that. So it's clear that if you have a big bounce back, but a big bounce back from what? If you have a big bounce back from very low down, then it gives a false idea of the summit. It's like coming up from the seabed and looking at the land and saying, good heavens, the land's high. Well, it is. Depends where you are, doesn't it? If you're on the seabed, it's high. If you're at sea level, it isn't. See what I mean? So that's what you have to think about. So I think there are inflation fears. As far as the bond market's concerned, I mean, yes, I get what he's saying about that. I feel as though the bond auction this week in the United States, never mind the bond yields, never mind what's happening in the bond markets, the bond auction, the appetite for public debt in the United States will define what we feel about inflation. I guess we'll be talking about this later in the week.
All right. Well, the other day, Michael, I think we still have just a minute to go. You brought a story about Deliveroo. And that company, is there any update on that? Because I saw a piece by a guy called Dominic O'Connell, and he was saying that with regard to Deliveroo, there is a contradiction. The company has been losing money, but in terms of its flotation value, we're talking about 7 billion. Why should anybody invest in a company that is consistently losing money?
Because that's what you do with these kind of companies. You look through what the figures are actually saying. I mean, I'm not an investment analyst, but it's been valued at 5, hasn't it? So therefore, people are looking at it and they're saying, yeah, it'll do it. Now, if it doesn't achieve that on a flotational basis, then it doesn't achieve it. You know, the market will decide that. I think there's a long way to go. And what they're also doing, I think the other story I was talking about yesterday is the fact they're going to reward their busiest cyclists, their busiest bicycle deliverers, with up to £10,000 each, which is good. In other words, what they're saying is we will have a say in the development of the company. That's why Deliveroo is important. It chimes well with stakeholders and shareholders, particularly stakeholders, because it's part of a new dual share offering in London, which is giving the founders of a company a say in which way that company develops. Now, that can be no bad thing. I think that's a good valuation for a company on its own.
Exciting times.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael, for that. For update on COVID-19 pandemic, Adesua Mara is here with us. Ogun State has got the vaccine already, but that's going to be after the break. A lot more. All right, welcome back to Studio Rise News Channel. For updates on COVID-19 pandemic, Adesua Mara is right here with us. Adesua, great to have you. Good morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Dr. Abati, and good morning, Tundu. There's a lot to talk about this morning as Nigeria rolls out its vaccine, but I will try as much as possible to run through all the information I have. But let's begin with the figures. Over 351,000 cases were recorded yesterday globally. It brought the total to 117.1 million, what you see on your screen globally yesterday. Excuse me. In Nigeria, the NCDC confirmed another 371 new cases in the last 24 hours. The largest numbers of infection came from Lagos State, which saw 102. This release means that Nigeria has now seen over 158,000 cases. And like I said, in continuation of the vaccination rollout, the chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, who doubles as the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, led other members of the PTF and some journalists covering the PTF yesterday to receive their first jab of the AstraZeneca vaccine at the weekly briefing. The PTF, or as we know it, is a multi-sectoral one with various ministries represented, including Information and Culture, Environment, Health, Aviation, just to mention a few. And then giving an update yesterday, the head of the NPHCDA, Dr. Schweib, disclosed that the movement of vaccines to various states commenced yesterday. He also said an accountability mechanism has been put in place to ensure equitable distribution of vaccines in the states. However, I must say that information on the distribution to the states, the plan has been scanty, and all efforts to reach the agency for clarification has proved abortive so far. Before we get to Lagos State, let's go to Ogun State, where congratulations may be in order, and perhaps maybe we need to set up a committee to find out why there are 3 indigenes of Ogun State in the studio, or maybe I should off my mic. Well, Ogun State has become the first state to receive the COVAX vaccine. Ogun State, Governor Dakpa Abiodun made the announcement via his Twitter handle yesterday. He said 50,000 doses were received out of the 100,000 doses they're supposed to get. Now, the state did not only receive, the governor also got vaccinated yesterday. Yes, Governor Dakpa Abiodun of Ogun State, Southwest Nigeria, became the first governor to receive a jab of the COVAX vaccine yesterday. And let's come to Lagos. Yes, the state primary healthcare board in Lagos says that COVID-19 vaccination in the state will be done in 4 phases, beginning with all frontline workers. So that's beyond health frontline workers. All frontline workers, to include policemen, petrol station attendants, those at the ports of entry into the states, including air, land, and sea. So preparations. And then we were told that movement to the states have commenced yesterday, as I said, but we're not told which state. However, we got a hold of a purported progress chart report of state preparedness. I will show you some graphics in a bit. And now, so there was a criteria released on that progress chart to include list of healthcare workers, storage, security for those storage, focal persons for e-registration, technical working groups, and operation rooms. These are some of the criteria that states must meet to get their vaccine. Now, we are told 11 states are uncertain. If we could go to the next slide, 11 states are uncertain as to when they will meet this, get their vaccine, because they have not met any or majority of the criteria. The states you see, including Kogi. The next slide will show you that 12 states in all, including the FCT and Ogun State, which have received vaccines, have met all the criteria ahead of the other states. So we are likely to see vaccine doses go to these states ahead of their counterparts. And finally, yesterday, we saw some close aides of the president, including Garba Shehu, the presidential spokesperson, the chief of staff to the president, Mr. Gambari, who's on your screen, and of course, the boss of the NDLEA received their first shot of the jab as well. So vaccination is ongoing in the country. Away from Nigeria to the U.S., where new guidance published by the U.S. Center for Disease Control has said that people who are fully vaccinated could meet with people who are at low risk without mask or social distancing. So let the maskless gatherings begin in the U.S. This paves the way for inoculated parents or grandparents to meet with their younger family members who have not taken their vaccines. The CDC guideline also states that someone is not fully vaccinated until 2 weeks after their last required dose of the vaccine. The last time I checked, there were over 30 million people who had received both doses of their vaccine in America.
Well, very quickly, I think it's good to see that the rollout has begun in Nigeria, and we hope that those states, 11 states, as reported, that are not yet ready, they don't have vaccine distribution centers, they have not submitted their list of healthcare workers. We hope that they will hurry up so that they can be part of this inoculation rollout. And then, of course, you refer to the fact that in Abuja, some journalists also had the privilege of getting the vaccine. Well, maybe the Presidential Task Force and the MPACDA should follow the example of Ghana. In Ghana, some journalists were also given the privilege of being among the first set of persons to take the vaccine. Journalists and celebrities. Well, tell them at the MPACDA that should they want volunteers from the media, some of us will not hesitate to join. And then you talked about Ogun State. Well, it's good to see that Ogun State is ahead, and Ogun State is, it's the very first state to receive the vaccines, because it's one of the states that got ready quickly. And in Lagos, I think Lagos has also done well by defining 4 phases of the immunization. That's an indication also that Lagos State is ready. We hope that other states will follow suit and that the national immunization rollout for COVID-19 would be successful.
I'm just completely appalled that there are 11 states that are not ready. I was actually expecting just one state on that list, whose governor has been quite vocal about his whole hostility to the idea of vaccinations, but this is really embarrassing as far as I'm concerned. We've had over a year of this pandemic. It's unacceptable.
For me, I'm more shocked than that Kanu is not ready. With all we went through during, the COVID-19 scourge in Kano, I thought Kano would have been ready by now, particularly owing to the fact that, there were some deaths reported that have not been investigated. Anyway, they said it was not COVID-19 related and all of that. And I thought that Kano would have been ready, but that's apart from it. Really, most importantly, my challenge with the vaccination process will be the logistics. And I want to know really how they're handling it, because a lot of people are not saying anything about it. The only thing we've heard about the logistics was the story that over 10 billion was set aside for the logistics, but they denied the story and they said, no, it wasn't that much and all of that. I want to know how it's handled. I want to know who is maintaining temperature checks to the various destinations, because these things have to be kept at 8 degrees. You break the cold chain at a point, you keep them at 5, 2, 3, 4 degrees, then there's a problem. I mean, you keep them at 10, 25 degrees, there's a problem. I want to know who is monitoring that. I want to know who is ensuring the integrity of the vaccines. Has heat not disrupted them? Those are very important things they should constantly tell people out there, because there are a lot of anti-vaxxers. And people want to know all of this going on. As regards the logistics, who's handling the logistics, how is it getting out to states? These are the nitty-gritty we want to know.
Well, I think with regard to that, what the MPHCDA has said, as the primary healthcare development agency that is in charge of the vaccination rollout, they have attached to each state what they call vaccination officers. Okay. Those vaccination officers are supposed to be the experts who will oversee, monitor the process in the states and ensure that there's due compliance with regard to the logistics and the maintenance of the vaccines. But your point is valid. I mean, we don't expect that there will be any waste. So far, we've received only 3.9 million doses. And if we waste any of those doses, then, of course, that's counterproductive. Well, you are surprised that it's not only Kogi that is on the list. Rufai says he's surprised Kano is on the list. Well, shouldn't we also be surprised that Katsina State, the president state, is also not ready? But we urge the various states to please step up their game and get ready quickly so that we can have an effective national immunization program.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Adesuwa, for your time, as always.